Okay, good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, before we get started formally this evening, I would just like to welcome everyone back. It's been 18 months since we've all been together as a council. Our last in-person meeting was March 9th of 2020. We held 6 meetings as a new council at that time and then went strictly remote after that. But I want to personally thank each and every member of this council for the hard work that you've done over the past year and a half. These meetings are not easy, and when you have to do them over Zoom with 2 budget processes that take place within the time that we were in Zoom, I think it's really a monumental task, and you all should be commended for a job well done. At no time did we ever not move the city business. So we continue to do the people's work, even though we couldn't get together. So I want to thank you for all that. I also want to point out that during that time, it taught all of us to be a little bit more nimble, right? It taught the city council to be a little bit more nimble as well. So as we go forward, and hope to continue forward with in-person meetings, but the virus is kind of going to dictate that to us. But we also have other options. So if you don't come in person, we do live stream our city council meetings, and we also tape them and upload them to the city YouTube channel. So people that can't make it or can't make it at this particular time or want to still be involved in seeing what the city council meetings are can access that at any time at their leisure. So that's something that we plan on keeping going forward. At this time, Stacy, could you please call the roll?
Councilman Gary Donovan.
Present.
Councilwoman Colleen O'Connor.
Council.
Councilwoman Bridget Hosky.
Present.
Councilman William X. Conlon.
Present.
Councilwoman Elizabeth Johnston is absent. Councilman Mitchell Galagnano.
Present.
Councilwoman Robin Hamilton.
Here.
Councilman Peter Massaro.
Here.
Councilwoman Trinae McGee.
Here.
Councilwoman Crystal Finelli.
Present.
Councilman Robert Bruno.
Present.
Councilman Barry Lee Cohen.
Here.
And Chairman Ronald Tagliani.
Here. We have a quorum. Thank you, Stacy. Before we enter into public comment, I would just like to take a minute. Since our last meeting a month ago, we lost several former employees of the city of West Haven. I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge them. Eddie Thomas. Eddie was a former volunteer firefighter with the Allentown Fire Department. Geraldine Fletcher. Jerry served for many years as the West Haven Police Department Board of Police Commissioner's clerk. Mona Lemire was a 44-year employee of the city of West Haven. Many of those years she spent with the West Haven Police Department. Lizzie Allspaw was a longtime employee of the Board of Education as a lunch aide. Constance Connie Elliott served for many years as a school crossing guard, and you could regularly see Connie at her post on Main Street. Hank Knoll was a 38-year employee with the city in the Public Works Department and the Park Maintenance Department. The community also mourns the passing of Maddie Ciccarello, the 13-year-old daughter of Animal Control Officer Nikki Stancarone, who passed away this past week. And I also want to acknowledge that this is the first time coming together in person as a city council since the start of the pandemic. We also remember and acknowledge the profound loss many West Haven families have undergone as a result of the illness and deaths from COVID-19. If we could take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. So since it's been 18 months, I'll just go over our public comment rules. It's a one-time speaking rule. I ask you to please be concise so everybody has an opportunity to speak. It would be helpful if the items were on the agenda or has to do with city business. Of course, proper decorum is required, and if we are discussing employees, we could use the general term of employee, as employees through the state statutes have the right to be noticed prior to anybody discussing them or their employment records in a public meeting. So that being said, is there anyone from the public that would like to address the City Council? Mr. Monahan? And Mr. McCarthy?
Mr. Chairman, we come here tonight to
If I can just have your name and address for the...
Tom McCarthy, 68 Trumbull Street, George Monahan.
George Monahan, 376 Center Street.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to rise on behalf of the Public Works Department and the administration and thank the Elks for this generous donation, $2,500, which is a beginning down payment to fulfill one of the mayor's dreams, which was to have a handicap accessible walkway down to the water, since we have the largest continuous stretch of public beach in this state. So we're more than halfway there, and I could not thank the Elks enough. I just wanted to commend them for that.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Anything else?
Secondarily, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I wanted to draw people's attention to the 6 plaques that are newly installed in the Harriet North courtroom. We got a call about a month ago that they were having difficulty selling the building that these were in the American Legion, obviously due to the size, the weight. What I want to tell you about them is that in 1945, these were a gift from the citizens of West Haven to ourselves, memorializing on 5 of the panels the names from 41 to 45 who served in World War II. The center is reserved for those that gave the ultimate sacrifice. I'd ask you to draw people's attention to them, to look at them. It's still a who's who of the history of West Haven. Some of the same names that gave it all are still here. I would just briefly like to thank all of you have different roles. You do them well. But when I need something done, I go to Robert Bruno. He and his men were instrumental in getting those plaques off of the walls up here, as always, for his usual price. And I can't thank him enough for it. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, thank you for asking us to make an appearance this evening. As most of you know, Elks Lodges is a national foundation, and first and foremost, Elks Lodges are thought of as social clubs. Unfortunately, the primary mission of Elks Lodges is to be a social club, but to first and foremost give back to the community. And one of our national slogans or mottos is Elks Care, Elks Share. I'm proud to be here tonight as an officer of the West Haven Elks, and chairman of the fundraising committee, chairman of the Elks National Foundation, and through some direct fundraising and some grant activity that we had the past year, we actually donated over $47,000 to charitable organizations here in West Haven and one national group last year during a pandemic year. So we worked very, very hard. We're proud of our lodge. Our lodge has woke up and we smell the roses. And we're trying to become more of a give back to the community organization rather than a social club. Social activities and having fun together is great, but we are trying to repair the improper image, and the new leadership over the past few years is working hard to do that. So we're proud as Westies, we're proud to have given an opportunity to make this donation, and I can assure you there are more opportunities in the pipeline, and we will do everything we can to continue that activity in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Monahan, for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the City Council? For the second time, is there anyone else from the public? Mr. Lewis.
Good evening, Council. Welcome back in person. That was pretty good with your delayed response. That was good. I'd just like to, I had a couple of things I wanted to address the council about. Given COVID and all the folks that passed on, were sick, that sort of thing, each town, each state received funds, federal funds, ARPA funds, CARES Act funds, and other dollars to be used within their cities and their municipalities. You, the council, are in charge of the expenditures of the funds. These ARPA funds are quite significant for our town. I see a lot of the paving and a lot of the other things going on in the city. I know some LoCIP money is being used, which is correct. I just don't want the funds to get commingled. So I would ask that the council would enact an ordinance that these funds that should be segregated in a separate account should be, whatever's spent should be brought monthly to this city council and reported on, so that there's full transparency to take account for the millions of dollars that the city has received. A lot's being spent, and we want to make sure it's being spent correctly, and I know you all, knowing that's your responsibility and that you would do it. Also, one of the communications on the Communication A, just concerned with the removal of a sworn officer of the West Haven Police Department who was shot in the line of duty, him being removed. I'm not really sure what took place, and I love John. I think he's a great guy. I coached his daughter, so there's no issue there, but I just don't know why a police commissioner who serves the city would just be removed without even a phone call. No courtesy. So hopefully we can get better at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis, for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the city council? For a second time, anyone from the public? Marge Krasmensky, come on up.
It's been a long time since we met in person. I've watched it on my iPad when it was posted the day after. Forest Library, which was on Derby Avenue in Allington. It's been closed for, a year now? What's going on with that building? Has the developer gotten it, or is there some sort of haggling between the city of West Haven and the developer? Oh, thank you. What does the developer want, and what does the city of West Haven want done with that building? Is there asbestos in that building? Does the developer have to do something with the building before he actually takes it over? Because I understand the developer is also taking a house, which is, there's a parking lot after the building, and then there's a White House that I understand he also wants, and he's going to be taking it. But the library building, which we no longer have a library in our section of town, that's what I'm concerned about, because where do we go? I would have to go to the center, and so would a lot of people. There are people that within walking distance were able to go to that Forest Library. And it's been an inconvenience. With the pandemic and people being homeschooled, it's hard, even for me to go on my computer to look up things. A lot of people who don't have computers use that library. With the money that the city is going to get from the federal government, get on the case of the developer. He has a building there. The first floor is not finished. He's not touching it because he wants businesses for that first floor. It's stagnant, that building. Only UNH students are on the second and third floor. So you have to get together with him to feel him out to find out what the holdup is. Okay? That's my first thing. I understand Communication F, Finance Department, is getting a donation for Where Angels Play program. Is that the one down by the beach?
Yes.
Well, we have a little one at Forest School. We could use a little bit of money from the federal government to finish off our little playground. I wonder if you could look into that federal money to finish off our little playground, because it needs some money. Because there's a lot of kids in my neighborhood that could use that little playground up at Forest School. Okay, that's one thing. With the rain that we had a couple of weeks ago, I live at the end of a road that's a dead end. And there's woods at the end where I live. We have a problem with water because of the land next to me has a church on the top of the hill. In 2008, it was bought by a church. So they changed the topography of the land. When we get a downpour like we did a couple weeks ago, that water came down on the side of my house. It was horrible. The people who live below me, I don't think they're there. I think they went back to Africa for a spell. Well, my son posted it. The water hit their property, hit their concrete steps, and then down Burwell Road to Forest School. It was terrible. In 2008, when I was home from surgery, the city put some pipes in the ground on the side of my house. The problem being, Enright Street above me, this kid stopped the piping from going further up to Fenwick Street. His mother's garden was in the way. The city didn't go much further. That was wrong. It should have gone up further to Fenwick Street because that's where the driveway up to the church is. It stopped the project. It killed the project. So now when we get torrential rainwater, like it happened 2 weeks ago, the water has nowhere to go. It doesn't have enough piping in the ground. It just overflows the piping, and it's horrendous. I want the city to come and check it out to see what they can do to further alleviate that problem. Because with climate change and we start getting awful storms, it's going to get worse. Thank you.
Ms. Krasinski, I failed to ask you for your address, although I know it.
1 Roebuck
Thank
Street,
you.
Allentown, West Haven.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the city council for a second time? Dale?
Dale Isola, 90 Honey Pot Road. I was just wondering if you could really do me a favor, and I'll tell you why I'm asking for this. I was standing at the tax office in the line, and I was just wondering if you could temporarily put like a bench for people that are handicapped just to sit there. Reason being, I was in line and somebody had to hold on to me because they were going to fall over. So if you could, we just temporarily, just until the tax office is, tax time. So it's just a safety precaution. That's it. Thanks.
Take care of it. Thank you, Dale, for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the city council for a second time? Anyone from the public like to address the city council for a third time? Mr. Mullins.
Good evening, Stephen Mullins, 22 Oak Road in Allentown. Nothing controversial. There'll be plenty of time for that later on. I want to take the opportunity to thank everyone for continuing the hard work of the council during the last 17, 16 months or so. You got a lot done under unforeseen circumstances, and technology really came into play. I also want to make a comment about the plaques. This is wonderful here, and they're coming here twice a month for zoning meetings, or I guess going forward twice a month for zoning meetings. People often ask, who's Harriet North? Who's this Harriet North? And I had the pleasure of knowing Harriet North. I sat and had tea with Harriet North on her porch when I was in high school. And that's Harriet North. She was a city historian for West Haven for many, many years and died at the age of 94 in 1999. So these plaques are a wonderful addition to a room that was created in memory of our long-serving city historian. So thank you to all who are participating, I guess the Elks and Public Works and so forth for finding a good home for them. And that's it. We'll talk about controversial stuff later on. Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Mullins, for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the city council? For a second time, anyone from the public like to address the city council? For a third and final time, anyone from the public like to address the city council? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. We will enter into our regular council meeting. And the first order of business is the approval of the minutes of June 28th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
No moved.
You gotta raise your hands tonight, no more Zoom, right? So, Councilwoman Massaro, Councilwoman Hosky, is there a second? Second. Councilwoman Hamilton, Councilman Bruno, Councilman Galignano. Is there any discussion? Councilman Cohen.
Yes, just one small revision on page 3, top paragraph, midsection. It said Cohen asked if the $2 million for paving is in the plan. To be specific, Cohen asked if the $2 million for paving is in the 2021-2022 plan.
So we'll add 2021, 2022, is that
Correct. Next fiscal
take
year.
care of it?
Yes.
Okay, and there is one other change I have. So on page 9, under new business, the very last sentence says, Chair Quagliani stated, and then that's all it says. So, so I believe I stated the communication to appoint the auditor will be made at the next meeting, or would be on the next meeting. But if we could amend that, that would be appreciated as well. Is there any other discussion on the minutes? So I'll call the vote. All in favor of the minutes as amended? Aye? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And those minutes are passed unanimously. I could ask the clerk to please pass out tonight's communications.
Tonight, we have before us Communication A from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to the appointment of John M. Carano to the West Haven Police Commission, which is being assigned to the Personnel and Civil Service Committee, Chairman Massaro. We have before us Communication B from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to the reappointment of Paul E. Butler to the West Haven Police Commission, being assigned to Personnel and Civil Service Committee, Chairman Massaro. We have Communication C from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to the appointment of Sammy Rivera to the Redevelopment Agency, being assigned to the Personnel and Civil Service Committee, Chairman Massaro. We have before us Communication D from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to the reappointment of Troy T. Tappan to the Allentown Fire Commission, being assigned to Personnel and Civil Service Committee, Chairman Massaro. And we have before us Communication E from Finance Director Seplinski in regards to the designation of the city auditors, being assigned to the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Hosky. We have before us Communication F from Finance Department in regards to a donation for the Where Angels Play Playground, being assigned to the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Hosky. We have before us Communication G from Christopher Soto in regards to Section 8-24, referral of the abandonment of a city street, a portion of Goodhue Street, and municipal improvements to 28 College Street, being assigned to the Public Lands Committee, Chairman Donovan. And we have Communication H from City Engineer Abdul Qadir in regards to a transfer of funds for the sewer outfall pipe project, being assigned to the Finance Committee, Chairwoman Hosky. And we have before us Communication I from Corporation Council in regards to an update on the state of Connecticut marijuana legislation, being assigned to the Health, Welfare, and Safety Committee, Chairman Bruno. And lastly, we have before us Communication J from Corporation Council in regards to Thompson School, being assigned to Public Lands Committee, Chairman Donovan. And that concludes our communications from this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Stacy. Just a point of information on page 4 of our agenda. Just above adoption of ordinances previously presented, there's a carryover from last meeting, which is a typo, Communication G from Doug Coulter. That was acted upon at last meeting, so we could cross that out. Okay, we will now enter into committee meetings. The first committee is the Finance Committee, Councilwoman Hosky.
Thank you, Chairman Quagliani. The time is now 7:25, and your Committee on Finance is in session. Present are Councilman Massaro, Bruno, and Cohen, Councilwoman Hamilton, and myself acting as chair. We have before us communication. Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. And we bring, I was asked, we're not gonna do the communications first, but bring Frank Chaplinsky up to meet with us. Is he still here? Give him a minute. Okay, so I'll go on. So then we have communication E from Finance Director Chaplinsky in regards to the designation of the city auditors. I'd like to bring this out favorably. Thank you, Councilwoman Hamilton. Can I have a second? Thank you, Councilman Cohen and Massaro and Bruno. Is there any discussion? I personally, before I open it up to the committee, would just like to add that in reviewing of the books that we make special mention of auditing the way that the COVID funds have been spent, that they are reviewed just to ensure that we are compliant. So I would like to make a motion to do that. Thank you, Councilman Cohen. Can I have a second? Councilman Bruno Massaro. Is there any discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries the amendment. Is there any discussion on the original motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Do we want to bring Frank up now, or? So we have communication F from Finance, from the Finance Department in regards to a donation for Where Angels Play Playground. I'd like to bring this forward, possibly. Thank you, Councilman Cohen. Second, Councilman Massaro. Is there any discussion?
I just wanted to add, and a big thank you to the Elks for doing this, because Tom McCarthy was absolutely right. When I first got in, I had seen this someplace, and I'm like, oh, I wish we had the money to do this, because people who are in wheelchairs cannot get to the water a lot of times, and this is going to be a great asset and help for those people if they want to get out. So thank you again to the Elks. It's very generous of them, and the city of West Haven really appreciates it.
Councilman Cohen?
Oh, yeah, to echo the mayor's words, when I saw this, I just said, wow. I mean, the extreme generosity, you know, COVID, no COVID, the Elks have been here for us for so long, always doing generous things for the community. And, you know, we just have a great community of a number of organizations, a number of charities, a number of churches. And when you see something like this, it's just a highlight of what we do and what makes it so worthwhile for us. Thank you very much.
Anything else? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We have before us communication H from City Engineer Abdul Qadir in regards to a transfer of funds for the sewer outfall pipe project. I have a motion. Thank you, Councilman Massaro. Can I have a second? Thank you, Councilman Bruno. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. I bring forward Frank. Frank, would you like to come to the podium, please? Would you please? Hi, Frank.
Good evening. It's good to see everybody in person again.
It is good to see you as well. So we just reached out wondering if you could give us an update on the city finances. I know you haven't actually closed the books on 21, but
Correct.
if you, what you could just tell us how we're
Correct.
doing.
So I'll give you an update where we are through 11 months.
I appreciate that.
Until the books are actually closed, I'm reluctant to actually talk about it. However, there is a projection in here. So you'll see on the first page, it's a full P&L comparison of revenues and expenditures to budget as well as the prior year. For the projection, we are including the $4 million from the MARB, from the restructuring funds. We have not heard otherwise. Although if we do end up with a surplus this year, as in prior years, they will most likely hold some of that back. These numbers also include $1.2 million of COVID relief funds that have come from the state. The city has received that already. That was prior to the ARP funds as well as the additional state funding that just came through. So we're projecting to come in over budget on the revenue side, and that's primarily driven because of the relief funds from the state. Operationally, we're right on target, down about $122,000. Some of that is in taxes. Some of that is, you'll notice on the grants line, the ECS money came in a little lower than was originally expected. But we did have some sale of property, so that offset it. On the cost side, we're looking to come in, right now estimates are about $1.9 million is where we're going to land with the COVID-related expenses. That is direct costs for cleaning supplies, for PPE, for other hard equipment. It also covers any overtime that was as a direct result of that. For example, the police and fire departments, if one of their officers is in quarantine, they can't just not staff that position. So somebody has to be hired back, there's overtime, all of that was accounted for, and all of that is part of this number. So at the end of the year, right now, I'm expecting the city to end up with a surplus of roughly $2 million. That is in line with where we ended up last year. Again, with a surplus last year as well of roughly $2 million. There, in the next couple of pages, you'll see the detailed breakouts for the revenues. So each one of those line items on the first page, you can see the individual breakouts. You'll notice that the licenses and the permits fees are a little down to budget. Hopefully, we can get that cleared up. Some of that is building permits as we're now starting to push through the backlog. So all of that should be coming through. So we should get that behind us. Everything else, there's really nothing here that jumped out at me as a potential issue. As I said, we are still going through the numbers from year end. If anything else comes through on the revenue side that is a surprise, I'll make sure that we get it communicated to you. You'll also have detail to the expenditure, and it's broken down as normally. It's broken down two different ways. It's by department and also by expense category, so wages, overtime, advertising, etc. The COVID expenses are put into the 900 unallocated expense line.
Where's that?
That is the expenditure report. Forgive me, I didn't number them.
I'm so surprised.
Five.
I'm just surprised it's not numbered, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So you'll notice that that line is unfavorable to the budget by $1.2 million. That is driven entirely by the COVID costs. You'll also see that we are expecting some favorability from the benefits line. That is primarily the healthcare insurance. So we do have, even though we're part of the Connecticut Partnership Plan and we're paying a premium every month, there is a component that is non-premium driven, so that's for the retirees. So all of that is strictly self-insured. So we are seeing a drastic reduction to what was projected by Anthem at the beginning of the budget cycle. Right? So they were extremely conservative, very good for that. As well as the debt service is also going to come in favorable. The budget was put together with obviously preliminary capital numbers. We used an aggressive interest rate when we built the budget. The actual bonding that we did in October of last year, we were able to get a more favorable rate. That resulted in less of a debt service for us for this year. One thing that we will be doing that we have not done yet is, for each of the departments, we'll be going through and looking at for year end to make the inter-line item transfers to make sure that we don't end up in deficit in any account. We will use whatever contingency monies are needed. Those are built into the projections. So I'm not expecting anything significant there. The Board of Education at this point has informed me that they expect to be able to turn back to the city $145,000. Hopefully, we'll see a little bit better than that. But as of right now, $145,000 is their estimate at what should be coming back. As we look at Allentown Fire Department, I'm expecting to end the year with a surplus there of roughly $100,000. A lot of that is, don't forget, in this current year, we had $250,000 set aside for capital expenditures. They have not made those expenditures yet. That money will roll into their fund balance. They will use that to purchase their truck in the coming year. All right, so when they do purchase it, it'll come out of their fund balance and not have to flow through their operating budget again. Revenues are very close to budget, expecting roughly $28,000 delta. And again, favorability on some of their contingency line items as well as the capital outlay. We did make the additional contribution to the pension, the additional $650,000. So that has been taken care of already, and we will do the same in fiscal 22 according to the budget. Sewer side, as of right now, I'm projecting about a $300,000 surplus for the year. Again, we're seeing some favorability to some of their debt service, to their contingency accounts. But again, until all of the bills come through, it's hard to know exactly where they're going to land. But good news is, at least for the three major funds, I'm not projecting any deficit in any of the funds.
So I have a question.
Yes, I knew you would.
Okay, awesome. So my first thing, Councilwoman Hamilton loves when I talk about Allentown Fire Department. So can I just ask, and it's literally just so that in case other people are wondering who are watching, the $100,000 that you say that we're gonna have in surplus in Allentown, and that's gonna go towards the fire truck. Who made the decision that it's gonna go towards the fire truck in lieu of, say, putting more money towards the pension? Like how, and I don't know if that's the right decision, but I just know that the pension, we hear a lot about it, and we're playing catch up, and we've done amazing, I believe, that we've done a great job. So can you just explain to me, like, why that decision was made, you know, what was the rationale behind it?
I think the only reason behind it is because there was a line item in the current budget for capital equipment that was not purchased yet.
Okay,
So we did get a grant for the fire truck.
right,
That will cover roughly 75% of it. So the cost to the city will only be roughly $250,000, $260,000. So certainly the fund balance in Allentown is healthy enough to be able to take that money. Now, if you wanted to make additional contributions, then we would have to look at, possibly rolling it through the department in the next fiscal year.
well, I always want to make more contributions.
Yes.
That's a solid yes, so, I think I just want to be sure that it's always at the forefront of our thinking, you know what I mean? So that
It is.
we continue down this path of fiscal responsibility. Can you just speak to really quickly about the tax collection? Like, July is here.
July is here. I have not heard of any issues
Okay,
from the tax department. We are expecting a big push this week and next week as we end the grace period before interest and fees are incurred. But I believe that we are on track with where we were in prior years. The lien sale went through in fiscal '21 without a problem. So we're not seeing any issues there as well. So as far as Leslie has reported to me, there are no issues that I know of.
okay. So I have two more questions before I'm gonna stop, since I'm just on a roll. When you say that you expect us to come with a $2 million surplus, right? I think to myself, well, is it really a $2 million surplus when we got $1 million from the state? That's what you hear. But what I think that when we say we have a $2 million surplus, it's that with all things equal, when we got the $4 million from the state, we were supposed to end the year at zero.
Correct.
We should have not had anything.
That's correct.
So is there a better word we should be able to use than surplus to explain to, when I think of it, I'm like, well, is it really? I know what we're saying. I'm just wondering, other people don't understand that. And I don't know if the city council members are thinking the same thing. Well, how is it a surplus when we got $4 million?
It's a favorable variance to where we should have been compared to budget. Right, budget, we were supposed to be break even.
Right.
We're going to end the year with roughly $2 million additional in the bank.
Okay. So,
Again, assuming the entire $4 million from the state comes through.
right. No, and I appreciate that. And I just want to make sure that if anyone was curious as to why you're saying that, where that comes from, in a finance director's way of explaining things. So this is my last question. So comments were made about COVID expenses. I kind of agree. One of the thoughts as to why I brought you here is I wanted to talk about that. How are we tracking the expenses? And would it serve us better to have a different line item showing that? And you're our budget guy, you're our finance guy, so you kind of recommend to me.
There is a separate line item within the account structure.
Okay.
So I can go directly to that $1.8 million and tell you whether it was a direct accounts payable purchase or whether it was an entry to move costs out of other operating line items.
Okay, and at what point would you be able, when you do the end of year numbers, when you send that to us, your guy always sends that, can we make sure that's part of that?
Yes.
I appreciate
Yes.
that.
Mike Massa has been consolidating all that data for us.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. I'm done, I'm sorry. Anyone else from the finance committee have any questions? Okay, I can open it up to the rest of the council if... Yes, Chairman? I'm sorry.
I just want to go back to the fire truck. So Frank, I listened to the MARB meeting, whenever, last MARB meeting, a couple of weeks back, and there was a PowerPoint presentation by the Allentown Fire Department and the two other fire districts, and it was nice to see the collaboration and not just yeah, we're gonna help you out and you're gonna help us out, but as far as now we're talking about actually being strategic when it comes
Yes.
to buying capital items like fire trucks, right? So, you know, whether we understand what each district needs are, and we go to market together, so we drive down the price, but I think there's a lot of work that's being done, you know, with the city and the other fire districts to ensure that we are doing those types of deliberate items where we could really reduce the cost to the taxpayer. So I was happy to see that, and it's very visible, and I think, you know, the MARB obviously saw that, and I think we're headed in a good place.
I think so, and for that meeting, we thought it was important to illustrate to the MARB exactly how tight the departments work together. So, you know, the initial assumption from the MARB when they did the study was that they would be able to cut expenses, but through consolidation. But the study came through and identified that that's not the case. So where we will be able to find savings is through economies of scale, through cooperation between the departments, and along those lines, we have gotten, all three departments are now using the same actuary. So we're moving towards, if in name only, a single West Haven fire department, right? So where we're moving things strategically, where the three departments independently are working together.
Yeah, I think that's good. And then just my if I could, I just one more question. So the monies that are coming from federal sources, I'll give you whatever the acronym is, right. So that's all budget money that's coming into the city, and now I would imagine that you and the mayor and others will craft a plan as to how that money will be utilized, and then it's going to come in front of us for review, deliberation, and action. Correct. So none of that money could be spent without it coming past this table.
That's correct. That's correct. And the funds, as I heard earlier, and forgive me, I don't remember, I think it was Mr. Lewis maybe, those funds are segregated. They are in, those monies are in separate funds for the sole purpose of having complete visibility around what that money is being spent on.
Thank you.
Councilman Cohen,
Yeah,
sorry.
you know, I was listening, Brandon and I were listening, Chairman Quaglian and I were listening to the same meeting and so forth, and what I really found interesting, above and beyond everything you just said about the synergy, I'll call it, between the three fire departments, is when you look at their past year's budgets and so forth, when you see how they're really working together, the three departments through the training, you know, in terms of the right training and the cost for training, and also really working together for grants. So they're not all doing separate grants in silos, so there's, the bigger the grant, the better the opportunity. I know I'm simplifying it, but that's pretty much what I heard, was the bigger the grant, the better the opportunity. So I was pretty excited about that, because you looked at some of the other budgets like, oh, wow, we haven't done that before, you know? So I just wanted to say, above and beyond what you said, that was what impressed me about the fire discussion, if you will. Like everyone already said, it is being segregated, so, yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions for Frank? Well, as always, I appreciate you, Frank, and thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
You too.
The time is now 7:48, Chairman, and the Committee on Finance is closed.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hosky. Next committee is the Public Lands Committee, Councilman Donovan.
Thank you, Chairman Quagliani. The time is 7:49. The Committee on Public Lands is now in session. The members present are Councilman Galignano, Councilwoman Finelli, Councilman Conlon, Councilwoman O'Connor, and myself acting as chair. We have before us tonight Communication G from Christopher Soto in regards to Section 824, referral of the abandonment of a city street. Portion of that was Goodhue Street and municipal improvements to 28 College Street. I'd like to bring this out favorably.
Motion?
Mitch, thank you. Got a second?
Second.
Colleen O'Connor and Crystal Finelli, thank you. Now with discussion on that, Lee, if you wouldn't mind, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mr. Soto had a death in the family. We have a drawing of Carl Street. Hopefully, Gagliano, if you want to share that with your colleague. So, Mitch, you want to share that with your colleague? Basically, this is more of a housekeeping matter. This should have been done a long time ago. When the council abandons a street, you don't actually own the street. We do own Kimberly Avenue, but that's because the state deeded it to us, the old Kimberly Avenue, not the new one. But you don't own streets. Streets are really rights of way. So when you abandon streets, they revert to whoever is the owner of either side of the street. So the owners are going to get that side of the street, but it's a necessary element to trying to coordinate what we're doing up there in terms of doing a lot of overdue improvements that we didn't have a choice because things like the lift failed and other things, new fuel tanks. But we are working with the owner. We're going to tee up an easement because the owner's been kind enough to let us drive over his land for several years so that we can get to our facilities, and we think, to be fair, we should give a formalized agreement. So, like I say, apologize. Should have had this many years ago, but better late than never, I suppose.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hamilton.
Yeah, does anybody in the committee have any questions? I will bring it out to the council if anyone has any questions at this time. Seeing none, all in favor?
I think, point of order, we have to hold that because we need a public hearing for
I thought it was
next meeting. So
Next,
just-
my apologies.
Yes.
Yeah, so we will be holding it in public hearing for the next meeting as well. Next communication we have is communication J from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to Thompson School. I'd like to bring this, do I have a motion to bring this up favorably?
So moved.
Chris Snelling and Mitch Galagnano. A second?
Second.
Second, Colleen O'Connor, thank you. Any discussion on this? And again, Lee?
Yeah, so the council approved authorizing the mayor to do a deal with a developer for all three schools. Then it was signed literally when COVID started. That did impact the developer's ability, and then the developer reached out to us to see if we could get some remediation funds, which we were able to secure for all three schools. And what that's going to allow us to do is we're going to know exactly what the remediation needs are, but in the meantime, we have had other interest in the properties. So I reached out to the existing developer. What this resolution does is it allows the mayor to negotiate with other potential developers, and I would anticipate we will be coming back in the August meeting with an actual recommendation and a proposed contract for either the existing developer or the new developer at very favorable terms. And the remediation piece, we're going to start immediately. So we're already trying to set that up in terms of getting the proper people in place to complete that.
Lee, with that, when you said we're going to come back, you're going to bring back all the developers?
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's a good point. I thought it would be, the council, you can do it one of two ways. You could have a recommended developer for the mayor, but the council gets to decide this. And I thought it would be better, and I thought you'd feel more comfortable about your decision if you had all the competing developers and you got to choose. When we did the RFP for the last one, we had a committee, we reviewed it, and we made a recommendation. But I think we're going to be better positioned with, now that we're back in person, with PowerPoints and so on and so forth, and you can size up each developer. You'll have a history of each developer. I already have some preliminary information from potential developers. So you'll definitely, I've already heard, you'll definitely have the existing developer, and if there are any changes to his plan,
and you'll have at least 2, possibly 3 other developers, and all of them are interested in all the schools. So I think it'll be nice for a change to actually be able to have a choice, to be able to say, no, we want this, or something's better than another, and I think the council will be in a better position to make a decision they feel comfortable with. Thank you, Council Bell.
The committee have any questions?
I do. So I'm confused a little bit. So this is just Thompson School, you mentioned all the schools. The last time we did this, it was a bid opening, and, because I went to that bid opening, and now, if I understand you properly, we're gonna make the decision, and we're not gonna do a bid opening, is that what you
Well,
said?
yeah, you could do another RFP. You already did an RFP.
Correct.
Put the signs up, everything for sale, so on and so forth. The difference now is, I have developers unsolicited coming in to the City Hall doors saying, we have an interest in the schools. I don't really see how an RFP is gonna get you any more interest.
No, I'm good with
Yeah.
them coming before us and us making the decision, I have no issue with that. But it's also just this Thompson School here, but you mentioned the other 2 schools.
No, correct. So this, yes, that's correct. The resolution only gives you, you're only giving the mayor authority to negotiate Thompson School. But I'm alerting you that you're probably going to have proposals on all 3 schools. You're definitely going to have a proposal on Thompson School. We already have proposals in that. We'll put those together so that you have.
In those proposals, they'll come before us and tell us what they want to do with that school.
And the proposers will be here as well.
Right, okay.
Architects, whatever other people they have. All of them have, what we check out is that they have, for what they're proposing, do they have experience in that area? So if they're proposing rental housing, have they ever developed other rental housing, if so, which kind? Give us examples so that people can go look at the finished product, check references, check if there's anything online, bad or indifferent. And then, when you bring it before them, you can say, well, because it isn't necessarily, you could just go with the highest price, but I think people want action, right? So you want to know who's going to be able to start first, and who has the economic wherewithal and the confidence that they're going to go forward.
I've enjoyed, that's in my district, of course, it's a high priority on me and everybody there. It's been an eyesore probably for over 10 years now, so, and I've been wanting to push that, get that school, whatever we're gonna do with it, sold it, and get whatever we're gonna get in there, so.
Yeah, I mean, when you get to the next item, I'll go into a little bit of where we think we are in Thompson School, but I don't want to jump ahead.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? I like Joe.
I just wanted to thank Doug Coulter, our grants writer, because he was very instrumental in getting this brownfield money, not only for this school, but other school as well, and I think 3 buildings altogether. And without, an eye for detail, you could lose out. So I just want to give him a shout out.
Yes, I can say that Doug asked for a lot of help with that grant. He got some. Kind of pushed back and made him do most of it himself, so he does deserve the lion's share of the credit.
So, excuse me, one.
No, go right ahead.
Why do we have to go get that brownfield money when we were selling the school out? That's confusing.
We didn't have to, but the developer, COVID hit, his numbers weren't the same. No one knew, you go back to June, let's say, in COVID. No one knows, what the future market of rental is. No one knows if he's going to be able to borrow money. So then the remediation piece becomes like, the numbers don't work. He's not going to be able to borrow money. He needs to know the exact number in the remediation piece. In addition to that, although it was slow, it was clear from the current gubernatorial administration that they're pivoting on the brownfield area in general. They're pivoting to get rid of the Transfer Act meaning the ability to transfer property that's identified by DEEP as a brownfield property, but also in the area of bonding for brownfield funds. The governor considers this encouraging development. He doesn't consider this just cleaning up an area. He considers it encouraging development. there were many meetings, and we know because we had other bond projects, there were many meetings that there wasn't a bond meeting. So we had a long delay before bonding got put in place. We did secure funds in the first round, that bonding was restored for brownfields. Immediately thereafter, they had a second round, they're gonna just keep, you're gonna see brownfield money just keep coming from the bond council because they do see it as developmental funds. So we did have to wait, but we knew it was coming and we knew it would be worthwhile.
Again, I'm confused because I thought we were waiting for the actual buyer to get his own brownfield money.
That's one of the reasons you're doing the new resolution on Thompson School, because we're not going to reward the buyer with his full deal when it was not clear that there would be brownfield money. So there will be a renegotiation if indeed that is the individual who you stay with.
And the city has gotten that money on their own.
Correct.
For this particular school.
Correct.
Or this particular property.
Right.
And we're gonna give this money to the buyer?
No. We're going to comply with the grant ourselves. But that means we increase the value of each property, right?
Okay.
That was before. So that requires a renegotiation from our point of view.
Understood. Thank you.
All set?
I am.
Okay. I'll open it up to the council as a whole. Mr. Cohen?
Thanks. Thank you, Chairman.
You got it.
Lee, just a quick question for you. You had mentioned that you're going to start remediation immediately on this building?
We're going to start, you have to do tests first. I mean, there'll be expert,
No, I'm just
the
curious.
engineers and stuff, we're going to be awarding that immediately.
Okay.
So that they're going to get into the building and do
Yeah.
the assessments that they need to do.
Because I don't think you know yet, or maybe you do know, like how long, for the Thompson School, how long will the remediation take?
Correct.
So we're not going to know that until the tests are taken.
Right, what we're going
Right.
to get is a detailed analysis of
Right.
exactly what needs to be remediated,
Gotcha.
including the cost.
Right, and that's going to take a certain amount of time, and then from there, you'll know how long, you'll have a projection for the
Correct.
remediation itself. Okay,
Correct.
so the testing's starting right away. Gotcha.
But I mean, the testing has value.
No,
and,
of course.
You know,
Of
the
course.
remediation will have value. So we think
Absolutely.
it's the right time to renegotiate.
You all set, Councilman Cohen?
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you.
Any other members from the council have any questions? All right, seeing none, going back to the committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next order of business, we have communication I from June 14, 2021, from Mayor Nancy Rossi in regards to 70 Hall Street. I'd like to bring this out favorably. So move. Motion. Councilman Galliano, second. Councilman Conlon, Councilwoman O'Connor, thank you. Any discussion? Again, Lee, you're here.
Yeah, this is, I don't think at this podium or in this forum we get a feel-good moment, but this is one you can feel good at. Mr. Anderson reached out to me. He's a local businessman, has a glass business. I'm going to have him say a few words, if that's okay with the chair.
Absolutely.
And he's engaged in getting the contract, for instance, for the windows with Surfside. He's found that his business is expanding, and he would prefer to expand in West Haven than expand anywhere else. The easiest expansion is to expand right into Thompson School since he abuts the school. Initially, it was viewed he could just take over the whole parking lot because the thought was, why not, it's just sitting there, it's been sitting there 10 years, as the council noted. But we did get pushback from developers that came in. Every proposal for Thompson School envisions the monetization of that development to be maximized by using some of that parking lot for the housing development. If you shrink the number of units, you shrink the profit. And so we went back to Mr. Anderson, and he was generous enough to shrink his plan and still expand, and be happy with it in the process. So we were pretty happy to do this. We ran it by all of our existing proposed developers for that school site. All of them are fine with it, doesn't impair anybody's future development of Thompson School, and it's something we can do right away. Chris Soto couldn't be here. The next pivot we're going to have, Thompson School is currently zoned as a public facilities district because that's what all your schools are in. So we will now pivot and discuss with the Planning and Zoning Commission and have for the next agenda we can get on, the proper zoning designation for Thompson School, so that when a development comes, it's not going to be dependent on a provision that says subject to zoning approval. We're already going to have the zoning approval, so we can move a little faster than we normally do. And with that, I'll invite Mr. Anderson to come up, talk about his business, and talk about what he envisions.
Good evening, Council.
I wish to give your name and address.
Thank you. First time. John Anderson, 805 Campbell Avenue, Anderson Glass. Been there for 1984, I think, something like that. We've had a few drive-throughs, and now we need to make our place a little bit bigger. Everybody knows.
there that day.
Yeah, the bus. That's another part of this, because you know what was there was non-conforming, so this will be conforming, the replacement. This will actually be the replacement of a lot of the square footage that was taken away from the bus. And you know, we're happy to be in West Haven, and as Lee said, we're looking at a couple of projects, Surfside in particular, and right around the corner from us, and we'll need a little more space to store windows and so on and so forth. And we're excited to be in West Haven and excited to continue doing business here.
Absolutely. And I'm glad to have you in West Haven. I'm glad you want to expand. Thank you. Again, anybody got questions for Mr. Anderson? All good? Just want to bring up, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The other thing before, council should have a map, it's a colored map now of that. The portion to be sold is kind of like in the mesh type of, it's not the whole dotted line. It is just that small section that we're looking at. I believe it's like 6,200, 6,300 square feet.
Correct. It's to really square off his property. He already has a 15-foot wide egress from Hall, and so we would just square it off, and it squares off the Hall Street, his lot up to Hall Street.
Anybody else have any questions? No? All in favor, the committee, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. And with that, Public Lands Committee is closed at 8:10.
Thank you, Councilman Donovan. The next committee is Personnel and Civil Service Committee, Councilman Massaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Personnel Service, sir.
Councilman
In
Massaro.
session at 8:08. I thought I talked so loud enough. 8:08. On the committee is Councilwoman Hamilton, Councilman McGee, Councilman Bruno, Councilwoman O'Connor, and myself as acting chair. And we got before us tonight, A, by Mayor Nancy R. Rossi, in regards to appointing John Carano to the Police Commission. I'd like to bring this out favorably. He has a very, very good resume, a big resume, and I've known John Carano for a very long time, and he's a gentleman, and he does do his job that when people ask him to do, and he's very, very good as far as I'm concerned, so I'd like to bring this out favorably.
So moved.
Thank you. Councilman, I have a second.
Second.
Second by Councilman Bruno. Thank you. Councilman Colleen. Any abstentions?
Call the roll.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We also got before us. What? Oh, any abstentions? Sorry. Nobody in favor.
I know you're rusty.
Yeah, we discussed it, we don't. All right. Next one I got. Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to reappointing Paul Butler to the West Haven Police Department. I'd like to bring this out favorably.
Motion.
I have a motion on it.
Motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Colleen. Any discussion? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
Sorry to be the guy here tonight, but you gotta call the vote, Councilman. All in favor?
I did already. All in favor? Gonna revise this one. We also have before us item C in regards to reappointing, appointing Sammy Rivera to redevelopment agency. I'd like to bring this out favorably.
So moved.
Thank you. I hear a second. Thank you, Colleen. Any discussion? All in favor? Nothing good if I forget that. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimously. And last, we have the Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to reappointing Troy Tappan to the Allentown Fire Commission. I'd like to bring this out favorably.
So moved.
Thank you. I hear a second.
Second.
Thank you, Colleen. Thank you. Any discussion?
I'd like to say something.
Go ahead.
I know Troy personally, and he jumped in within 6 months and has contributed greatly to the Allentown Fire Commission. So I'm excited to see him continue on in this position. Thank you.
I also like to say something too. I've dealt with Mr. Tappan for the last 6 months that he was in office. He's very, very good. He voices his opinion like I do. And I think he's a very good pick. That's it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? He's in unanimously. Personnel and Civil Service is done at 8:12. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Oh, you're welcome.
Next committee is Health, Welfare, and Safety Committee, Councilman Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The time is now 8:15. Committee on Health, Welfare, and Safety is in session. Members present are me as acting as chair, McGee, Finelli, Cohen, Donovan. And I would like to ask Corp Counsel for an update on this, please.
So when the mayor began her term, we always look for ways to save money, and one of the ways that I had experience with is utilization of law student interns. You have to supervise them, but you get free legal work. So with that, we're going to collect on our free legal work, and I'm going to have Riley introduce himself, tell you a little bit about himself, and then he's going to tell you everything you need to know about marijuana legislation, the law, as it relates to municipalities in the state of Connecticut.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Riley Meacham. I'm going to go over the new law regarding marijuana. It's about 3,000 pages long, so I want to condense it as much as I can for everyone here on the committee. Essentially, we cannot take any federal aid for any marijuana-related projects. So anything, including having a dispensary in the town, having a growth or a field in the town that another company owns, that has to be funded not federally, but through a marijuana credit union. There's several of these. We're entertaining talks with a couple of them right now, but there's nothing definitive yet. It has to be done through like CUNA. There's a couple other companies, North Bay. Grow Lab has a couple of credit programs as well, and we're all looking at all of those. Now, regular people can grow 3 plants per person or 6 per household if they're a married couple. So that's up to them. There is some sort of a private growth program. However, on all sales, there's a tax along with the 6.35% sales tax. There's a 3% municipalities tax. That's left almost entirely up to the municipality in general to spend. So that's up to you guys. It has to go towards, and there's a committee that's defined where it has to go as an area with a historical conviction rate for drug-related offenses greater than 1/10. That's most of the city. There's no real other restrictions on that besides that definition right there. You can put it into an investment, a development, so you have pretty much free reign on that 3% tax just based on the city. So if you are looking at offers from different dispensaries, that's something to take into mind, is that they are offering a 3% tax just for you. Also, just finally, we have to think about designated smoking areas. There needs to be an area for people who smoke marijuana to smoke. I have made a list of a couple. If anyone wants it, you can just let me know. Areas where it's not going to smell or where it's not going to depreciate property values greatly. And also the city has the right to create drug-free zones, even though marijuana is legal. If you'd like to have a certain area not have any marijuana smell or any marijuana smokers, such as this one here, or a particular museum or a restaurant, it's up to the town to designate those. As long as we have at least one designated smoking area, given the size of the town, we can do sort of whatever we want regarding where you can smoke publicly. I know that the train station is looking to have both of its smoker respite areas expanded to include marijuana smokers. Both of them do fit the designated area requirements from a designated marijuana smoking area. So if that happens, we don't need to worry about anything. I have a couple of suggestions for places that might work well if they're not interested, but I think they are. So that might be something that's worth tabling. Other than that, the only thing the city has to worry about is that we have to have the police officers have to go through a training program to help them identify drivers who are under the influence of marijuana. And we have to come up eventually with an odor regulation program, because currently nothing exists. Michigan's working on something, but it currently only exists in Michigan. So that's the only real changes that need to be made to West Haven's policy regarding marijuana, the police, and our city ordinance. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll have my email on the letter. I don't know. Minutes. Sorry, do you have a question?
Oh, I'm sure we will, right?
Yeah, we're gonna have some questions for you. You have the proposed areas, copies of them that you could let the council see?
Yeah,
or?
absolutely. I think I have with me here. There's a certain bus terminal by the Walmart. There's an area by the wastewater management plant where we feel like the smell is not going to be extremely intrusive. Yale's already building someplace near what they have. That's a marijuana smoke shop. And part of that intrudes onto West Haven soil, so we're going to include that as well as the 2 areas right next to the train station on either side of the platform. So, we do have the bare minimum here, but if we want to create more, we want to sort of spread out where people are smoking marijuana. That's something we can consider as well. I can talk with planning and zoning and we can create some more areas. Right now there's maybe at least 2, potentially 4. But if we want to create some more, just to create some sparsity so that it's not very dank in a certain area, that's something that could and should be considered as well.
Okay. Is there any committee members that have any questions before I open it up to the council? Mr. Donovan?
Yes. I have a couple. All right, so the individual resident, single, they're allowed up to 3 plants, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, and family is 6?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So they grow the marijuana, they're ready to harvest it, they're ready to roll it and whatever. Can they do it in their yard?
Yes, sir.
Right, okay. That was one. Now, the 3% tax you said is, what again? I missed that part.
So that's up to the city to spend. Essentially, the only guideline is that it has to go towards the people affected by the war on drugs. And there is a definition which is any community that has a historical conviction rate for drug-related offenses greater than 110, which is, to be frank, sir, most of Connecticut. So I think we
And
can.
how do we tax? So do people have to get a permit to do this, correct, or no?
Correct, yes, sir. And we're looking at certain dispensaries that will, their sales will be taxed, people who buy it will be taxed, people who sell it will be taxed, people who grow it will be taxed as well. And there's a 3% on all of that that will go to this municipality.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else? Councilman Cohen?
No, I'm sure everybody will ask.
Councilman Cohen?
Name your reason.
That's okay.
No.
That's the chairman.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Great presentation.
Oh, thank you. You're too kind.
You might not be able to answer this, but like I wanted to know, I know one of the reasons why this law was passed, or one of the driving forces for it, was the expunging of records.
Yes, ma'am.
So how would that affect our residents? And also, that's one question, and then I'll ask the second after.
So I can only speak legally, not economically. I can't say what's going to happen. But anyone whose record is entirely based off of marijuana drug distribution charges is going to have their record entirely expunged. Anyone from the year 2000 until now. So that's anyone in the past 21 years. If their record is based entirely on marijuana charges, their record is expunged entirely. Anyone who has a record of criminal offenses that's based entirely on marijuana charges that goes farther back than that, into the 90s. They have to appeal, but based on the fact that so many charges are being overturned, it looks very good for them as well. So, I mean, if you've been charged with a marijuana offense in 1999, and you want to, have it overturned, I would say go for it. I mean, the law says anyone within the year 2000 to 2021 whose criminal record is based entirely on marijuana charges is going to have it expunged and any charges overturned. So if someone has, a multitude of charges, they have marijuana and petty theft, or marijuana and something else, or they have marijuana charges that predate that and they want to overturn them, certainly we're open to hearing those. Anyone who was charged with just marijuana charges from 2000 until now is their record's expunged.
And secondly, I know as of July 1st, if you were a medicinal dispensary, you could sell. But is it true that if you were selling and it wasn't medicinal, but you wanted to open up a dispensary, that you had to wait until next year?
So this is my understanding, just from having talked to several dispensaries that want to open up in West Haven, and as well as just the professionals in the marijuana industry, is that by September 1st of 2021, if a medical dispensary in Connecticut wishes to apply for a license to sell recreationally, they may. And then it's up to the individual municipality to approve that said license. So if Grow Labs wanted to apply for a dispensary license here on September 1st, they could apply. If we rubber stamped it and pushed it through, it could be done on September 2nd. I don't know about the dates you've given me. I'm not sure about. I mean, I understand it's been legalized presently, and I know sales have been legalized. May 2022 is going to be, when all recreational sales are legalized. I don't know if that answers your question. I'm sorry, if you want me.
Yeah, it was helpful.
All right, sorry.
I wasn't for sure on the date, but I thought that I had heard something about that.
Is there anything else I can help anyone with, or?
Yeah, hold on a second.
I'm so sorry, Chair.
Yeah, hold on one second. You all set?
Yes.
You're good. Councilman Cohen?
Hi, Barry. Hi, yeah, actually, Agro Labs is in my district and so forth, and I know the people there and what they've been thinking about and so forth. And one of the things that hit me, because this thing has been an issue for a while, and it's interesting because I believe there's 19 cities in Connecticut that have that 50,000 or over that really have to make a decision in terms of, are they going to do public areas, are they going to enforce it, they're going to have segregated areas, so there's 19 of them. And I'm just kind of curious, because this is one of those things that some municipalities may have to thread the needle because they might have more limited space or how they're going to handle it, and it's really going to be, I guess my point really being is, thank goodness we do have some time to make a decision here to some extent. But, as I just looked on the map, and I don't know if these are all true, but the ones that are 50,000 or over besides West Haven, right in our own region, from a regional strategy to maybe just take a look at, is, you have New Haven, Bridgeport, Milford, Fairfield, Meriden, I think they're all over 50,000. You know, Wallingford, exactly, we can go on and on. It's like, you know, one of the things that when you think of marijuana, besides getting hungry, but with marijuana is, you know, how it's going to be treated in terms of public, private locations, and I know this is a larger conversation, but it does really bring up other issues based on where you have it, from restaurants to tourism to everything else, because of what people want to do, you know, and so forth. So I know I would be interested at some point that we're gonna figure out our own strategy, of course, you know, and where we think that we want to do, if it's 2, 4 places, 5 places, whatever. But I know as a council person, I'd be interested to know, you know, to talk to the other towns and see what they're doing, you know, just to see what they're thinking about, because, you know, sometimes these things are regional, where it's like, you know, well, gee, you know, West Haven allows this, and then you go a mile away into Milford, they're doing that, you know? So I would just basically be curious to know at some point as we move this along, you know, that
Yes, sir.
what's
No, I
going on
completely
there,
understand.
you know?
Unfortunately, Wallingford, I think, is having similar plans, similar to West Haven, so they're not super cooperative. I think they want to beat us to the punch. My ex works in Meriden's Town Hall. I don't know if that helps, but I do know there's a couple other towns that are looking to get some marijuana dispensaries in them. Right now, I know we're sort of at the front. Stanford is sort of ahead of us, but I've already quoted at least 2. So at least 2 of them are looking to have sort of a dispensary set up and ready to start selling after September the 1st. And it's probably going to be towards November, just based on what the committee guidelines are at right now.
Well, I'm just talking about public versus, you know, like how we're approaching it versus other towns. If we're gonna do a ban on smoking in public areas versus what other towns are doing. And again, that's just something that, you know, from just a regional scope that we should be looking at, just so that we're aware of it, not to say it's to dictate what we do.
Of course.
That is what I'm pointing out.
Yeah, I would just say, you know, one of the things Riley discovered was that the train station is going to have their own. So piggybacking that space should, and I don't like to give you guys, you know, this is just my opinion, but piggybacking that station seems like a no-brainer. I mean, it's going to be there anyway. So you might as well take advantage that that's one of your, you only have to have one if you want that few, and you can have more.
Yeah.
And there's going to be 2 at the train station at 50,000 people, or slightly above 50,000. We only need 1. So, you know, we've already done ourselves. The only reason you need 2 is if you have 250,000 people, which West Haven doesn't have. So we're pretty much already set. But if you want to create some more, if you want to sort of spread out where people are smoking marijuana for the purpose of property values or for the purpose of just aesthetic means, that's also something we can take into account. You know, we're you know, planning and zoning. The city currently has the power to create drug-free zones.
Yes,
as well
so
as,
that's my question.
of course, yes, ma'am.
So it concerns me because when I read your drug-free zone, it talks about like schools, right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
Right, so right now, you're talking about a school, so you could have 3rd graders outside playing and somebody could be on school grounds if we don't do these drug-free zones.
Well, presently, just based on the law, no one's allowed to smoke within 500 feet of a school. So, I mean, they could do it. I mean,
Okay, so that's, I guess, what I'm trying to say, because I'm trying to clarify. So even though it says the city may elect to place these wherever it chooses, and they would function not dissimilar to current drug-free or non-smoking zones.
yes, ma'am. And
So
people currently can't smoke technically within 500 yards of a school. So they're presently not allowed to smoke anywhere within a school zone. So there's kind of I mean, we can make something into an ordinance, or we can make something into a law, but right now people can't smoke anything, whether it be tobacco or marijuana, anywhere within like 500 yards of a school.
Okay, so that's kind of what I'm thinking. So if the South Rock Festival, for example, we're down at the Grove and we're having the festival, and that's a park, right? It's considered or designated a park. So if somebody's smoking marijuana, the police could say, you gotta go. I'm not wanting anyone to be arrested, but right now, in the city of West Haven, that's illegal. Because I don't want to do any laws or ordinances. The chief is here. Hi, Chief Berto. That's going to make it impossible to enforce, but I think when we think about doing all of this, we need to bring and ensure that the chief, the police commissioners are at the table so that we are not doing anything crazy. Because I read that and it kind of like made me a little like, oh.
Of course. And I don't mean to exclude the police from this conversation at all. I'm just saying the statewide, federal, like the law for the state of Connecticut is that no one can smoke marijuana within 500 yards of the school. So that doesn't matter. It's not just West Haven. It's anywhere in the state of Connecticut. You can't light up a blunt within 500 yards of the school, no matter where it is. I mean, whether you live there, whether the school is open or closed, you're not allowed to be smoking marijuana within 500 yards of the school. It's just up to us to then design the city based on that. You know, if we're going to have an area based on marijuana smoking, we put it someplace that's more than 500 yards from the school. If we're going to have an area that's a drug-free zone, I mean, yeah.
Because it's just the way when it said the city of West Haven will retain the power to designate and enforce certain drug-free zones. This may include schools. It gave me this idea that if we didn't do it again, like it was like going to be a free fall.
No,
like,
you're all set. Unless
Okay.
it's a private school, you know, any public school is all set. You know, within 500 yards, no one can smoke marijuana.
Okay, it just read like that could change or something, but.
I'm happy to rewrite it.
So,
I'm sorry.
perfect. And when we just move forward and we're making these decisions, again, I want to say that I hope that we work with and discuss these things with the chief of police, with his police commissioners, and the other first responders, just to get their input, because that's why we have them. That's all.
I know
Thank you.
Corporation Council's having a meeting with the police chief tomorrow morning, so we're, you know, if there's any
He looks
issues, we're
excited.
happy to discuss them.
Perfect, thank you.
I think our plate's full for that meeting, but we'll certainly.
Thank you, Chairman Bruno. So Riley, so I'm not going to editorialize here, but it's definitely a change, you know, in what I've done for a living for the last 36 years. So we'll adapt to that, and we understand that. But again, I think I want to talk about enforcement because, you know, to me, I think you put the right word in here: quantifiable way of enforcement. So a lot of this enforcement, to me. And I think it's logical to keep non-smoking areas, right? So it doesn't matter what you're smoking, if you're at the beach or in a park or at a school or whatever, you know, what other areas we have, they're non-smoking areas, you can't smoke anything there. But I guess the question comes down to when you're sitting on your deck on a nice Saturday night and then your neighbor's sitting on a deck too, and then here comes the plume coming over, right? So it says that there's about odor control and odor regulations, right? So I mean, I don't even know how to dive into that, and I'm sure the chief is thinking the same thing because it's really going to be subjective, right? So the one neighbor says, "Hey, listen, this is really offensive to me." The neighbor next door is smoking marijuana, which they have the right to do, but it's encroaching on my property now, and I want some action taken, right? And then you go to that neighbor that's smoking. And the neighbor says, "Listen, I'm in my own house, on my own deck. I can't control which way the wind is going, and I think, you know, you're being a little bit, you know, heavy-handed on me because I have the right to do this." So I mean, I see the enforcement piece in this kind of like catch-22 scenario where unless there's some quantitative measures, right? You know, we have you know, they have a noise ordinance, they have a decibel reader, right? There's no pot reader, right? That I know, right? So I mean, I can see how it's going to be problematic for law enforcement, and there's going to be an expectation from the community for who enforces the laws, right? The police department to take some action, and I think there's going to be some frustration because I'm not really sure where you land on a lot of that, and I'll leave that to the professionals to figure that out. But I hope that as this, you know, I was going to say as this grows, probably a bad choice. As this matures, that we'll kind of hone in on these, right? So there is a test for those that are potentially under the influence of alcohol when you're operating a vehicle. To my knowledge, there is no such test for if you are under a field sobriety test, if you may be under the influence of marijuana.
Precisely, sir. And, you know, if you could test somebody, you would be testing them for the last 30 days, essentially. There are some tests that allow you to test for the last week, but then again, you don't know if somebody was just really rocking out to the Grateful Dead one day, and that was 6 days ago, they could be perfectly fine to drive a car. So that's, again, we don't have a test precisely to gauge how inebriated somebody is on marijuana right now. Now, in Connecticut, we have over 54 drug recognition enforcement officers. I believe that number is closer to 75 now than it is 54. It's been some time, there are more of them now. But there's at least 54. And they are all certified to teach classes in how to recognize driving under the influence of marijuana, as well as other drugs such as fentanyl, heroin, opiates of different sorts, cocaine, which there aren't always accurate field tests for. So I would definitely recommend, if at all possible, getting I think even the state will be willing to fund for the city of West Haven such a seminar. It'd be, a couple of afternoons. You may want to break it up so that the police
That
force.
was my question. Did the law include funding for law enforcement to get properly trained or buy proper equipment or whatever may be coming down the line? Is there funding for that?
There's unfortunately no proper equipment, but there is funding for the seminar, which is, not incredibly expensive. I can get you a write-up of that, sir. Just let me know, and I'll give you, how to get that set up. But there is, the write-up is funded by the state. There would just be a seminar. It would have a couple of classes, usually about 6 hours total, after which point the different officers would be certified in detecting marijuana inhibited drivers.
And I have one last one, which puzzles me. So under the growing plant section they have, non-medical users may sell the product garnered from their 3 to 6 plants. So because I have a family or I'm married or a significant other, I get 6 plants, right? So now I'm gonna roll those joints up in my house, and then I'm gonna go somewhere else in West Haven and sell these on the street to somebody else. That's okay?
That's entirely legal, sir.
You said that's legal?
Yeah, yes, sir, that's legal.
Yeah, well, that's how I read it.
Yeah, that's up to you. You can do that if you'd like. And if you have a medical license, you're allowed to grow as many as you'd like, but you're not allowed to sell more than 6 of them.
So, so again, and I'm not trying to make light of it because
No, I understand, sir.
it's a law on the books that really there's a lot of holes in it, right? So again, there's a community expectation. So, right, so when it comes to when the mayor's office phone rings, or when the police chief's phone rings, or when our phones ring and say, listen, there's this new law here, and we want you to enforce it. We want you to do this, this, and this. And then when you look at what the law entails and the subjectiveness of the enforcement and the ability to now, how do we determine if there's a drug transaction going on? I grew that at my home, or to me, there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Absolutely, I don't disagree. The same is true of tobacco now. Say if somebody has tobacco that they acquired illegally, or if they bought cigarettes that didn't have the sticker on them, or to sell them and then add a sticker. There's lots of steps now that there's a semi-legality to it that's created for municipalities, for law enforcement, and I don't want to downplay that.
Yeah, and I don't want to keep going on and on, but like I said, I appreciate the clarification, because I know, now we know the work that we have to do to try to put something together to, really, make the community understand what the law is and what we can do and what we can't do. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. I'm good. Thank you, Riley.
Mr. Chairman, you're all set.
Thank you very much.
Councilman.
I'm going to take a different aspect on this. My feeling is this, that the government turns around and sees something that they can make money on, like they did with booze, booze was against the law, they legalized it, and they made money on that. Gambling was illegal, they made money on that, they made that legal because they're making a lot of money. Now they're doing it on marijuana. Now they expect the poor cities, they handle the problems. What about the people that are working, that come to work, if they're smoking a joint at home and then they decide to come to work? How are you going to turn around and have a person get a full day's work out of them, especially a first responder? Nothing was taken in place of all these avenues now that the poor city's got to take over. It's going to cost us money, and I think it's totally ridiculous something like this happened, because now, like the chairman says, everything's got to be changed. Now I can grow joints and go weed and go sell it.
Sure.
That's just like me growing my own cigars.
That's illegal.
Yeah, that's illegal. If I bring one in and I'll pay taxes on it.
Councilman Sarah, you all set?
Yeah, I'm done.
I guess, yeah, one second.
I have another question. One of the biggest concerns that I had when this bill was implemented is the way in which a lot of young people, millennials, Gen Z, people in general, rely on this as a mental health resource. I had seen billboards on I-91, are you addicted to marijuana? If you want to quit, call. And I've seen cities put things in place for people who need mental health resources, so they don't have to rely on this substance, because a large part of this is about capital, you know, sort of like what Peter said. So do you know of any cities in Connecticut that have set up mental health resources for young people so that they don't have to turn to this substance as the #1 way of dealing with trauma?
The reason I'm going to handle this question is, Councilor McGee, another thing that actually Riley is working on, but we haven't fleshed it out into a presentation, is, you may have read in the papers that a settlement has been reached in Purdue Pharma. Purdue Pharma produced an oxycodone that they were accused of creating pill mills, and the pill mills created addiction, and when people couldn't get the pills anymore, then they went to get other drugs. So you're going to have, actually, I think you're going to see what you're looking for using some of the resources from that Purdue Pharma funding. So I think you are going to see what you're looking for, but it's going to be on a broader brush of addiction generally, and maybe even mental health generally, because people self-medicate, and that'll certainly be a part of the whole idea. So there is going to be funds for that. When we've fleshed out exactly what we're going to get, we'll be back here to explain Purdue Pharma. I'll give Riley a different tie, and I'll let him lead that. But I think you're going to be, I don't know. Look, we're not pleased that there's a problem, and I think you're going to be pleased that this will be a rare instance. You know, when the smoking money came in, everybody needed the smoking money, and I'll be honest, not a large percentage went to really cessation or, you know, trying to eliminate smoking. A lot of it just went into general spending. But it's clear that the settlement money is not going to be that elastic. You're going to have more constraints on that sort of thing. So I think you're going to see that. The only other thing I'd say is to Councilor Massaro's comments is, if anybody who remembers when the corner guy had the number that they sold, you know, when it was illegal, the lottery paid 50 cents on the dollar. The state takes 90% on the dollar. In all the states that have legal marijuana, everybody who buys it, who bought it before, says the state price for marijuana is higher than the illegal price. So not only does government, we're going to make money on the taxes, they also raise the price. So.
Any other questions? You're good. Tony?
Thank you, Rod.
I just am trying to figure this out in my head. So if you have an acre of land, say, and you want to grow more than 6 plants, you have to go and get a license from the state and be covered under some kind of insurance, correct?
Yes, ma'am. So both of those things aren't particularly difficult. There's a couple of credit unions, so I mean, some of them are obviously based on people who have a credit score that's lower than others. But all of them, you know, operate throughout the country. So even though it's federally illegal and you can't get any loans from a bank if you want to own a marijuana farm, you can still own one even if you have a low credit score through one of these different credit companies.
Okay, now, say you don't have an acre of land, you live in an apartment but it's, you know, enough adults that you can have 6 plants. Does it have to be grown in your apartment? Or, like, we have community gardens here in West Haven. Could you plant marijuana in one of those gardens?
So that is difficult. The thing is, I don't have any case law to fall back on really, because that hasn't happened to the point where somebody has sued another town. So I don't have an answer for you directly.
Yeah, because we would need to know if we can say you can grow everything but marijuana in this garden.
And I don't want to say that's true, and I don't want to say that's false, because you might be missing out on money. I mean,
And discriminating?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like, you don't have a backyard or a place to grow. I don't know what the process would be if you want to apply for a permit. I've run a couple of those through where you'd say, I'd like to grow marijuana plants on city property. I don't know what the process for that would be right now. We would have to sort of
It is
comply.
something we need to consider.
Sure, absolutely, I don't deny that.
Thank you. That was it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Cohen.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on just something. I was trying to be polite the first time, but I'm just going to be more direct this time.
Go ahead, yeah.
I just, I think about attracting people into our town, businesses, professionals, and improving our quality of life. And one of the arteries, one of our points of difference in this city is our beautiful train station.
Yes.
It's a beautiful train station. It's the envy of the region, I believe. And I don't know how this is going to look, and maybe I'm overreacting, but I could just picture that odor ordinance not working. You get off the train and you have like these, whatever you want to call them, I don't know, areas. And it just reminds me of, the first thing that you come into the city, and again, I don't know what's being planned and all that, and maybe I'm going, but I just like think about, I lived in New York for a while, I lived in New Jersey for a while, and in my head, I kind of like have that smell up my nostrils when I think of this, okay? And I know that's a bad comparison, but I just hope that I know that the easy answer might be, and maybe it's the right answer, could be the 1 or the 2 over there, and maybe it's the right answer, but I just don't want us to have that welcome,
Yeah, no.
here,
I completely understand. Let me tell you what at least is my plan right now, and again, this is something that's totally open to change, because that's something we thought about too.
That's just my general instinct, not knowing anything.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. Right now, within 1,000 feet, there is currently a CBD dispenser, someone that sells marijuana, CBD, and kratom. What we're thinking of doing is we would like, and we have a couple of offers and some bids right now, to put a food truck near the train station on either side. So now the first thing you get out, you guys, your food truck makes Milford's look like it's complete, in Division 3 and you're in Division 1. You knock it out at the park. So, I've been taking the train for a long time. I've seen that the West Haven one looks beautiful. It's got glass, it's got bricks. Get a food truck there, you've really got it makes you look like you're just as, you're a competitive city. People who get off there, who are just, waiting for a bus or whatnot, going to a different business, are going to smell a whole bunch of different things, none of which are going to be marijuana. Now, I was thinking within maybe 1,000 yards of federal buildings, we could have just a non-smoking ordinance in general. That would get rid of our 2 current non-smoking areas, which are both by the train station. But it also costs us very little to set up ones. There's no designated size, so if somebody wanted to get like a paint wheel and just make a 5x5 square out by the wastewater plant, for instance, or by the beach, no one's stopping you. That would be all that's required. I know it sounds like kind of a grody place to smoke, but you don't need anything right now. There's no regulation saying you need anything fancy or even like an open air, like a covering. So it's up to us where we want smoking to legally happen. Illegal smoking, there's nothing we can really do about that. We can inform the police just like we have open container laws right now. But for right now, I want to try and bring things closer to areas like the bus stop, like train stations, where a lot of people are going to be seeing West Haven for the first time, where they're going to be getting their first view of West Haven. I want that to be nice. And even though marijuana is not something I necessarily think is bad, I want to move that away from the very tourist-prone areas. I want to move that out to the, outside of residential areas as well. I don't want the old people to be upset that everything smells like marijuana, but I also don't want...
He meant to say mature.
My apologies, I don't mean to be politically correct. But we will move it and make sure it's not in residential areas as well as not in commercial areas. But there's still areas where people can smoke marijuana that doesn't bother.
Just given my good old instinct, which would be totally wrong, but thank you for entertaining me there.
Of course, no.
Just for the people at home to understand, I want to make sure we're all understanding this. You're saying based on our population, the city of West Haven would only require 1, and we're saying it could be potentially the train station, right? So you could smoke legally at your home.
Yeah.
And right now, we're saying possibly the train station, but based on our population, we only need one spot for them to be a designated smoke area.
That's correct, yes, it could be anywhere. If the train station is amenable to it, that's great, because that means we don't have to do anything. If they're not, that means, again, you can make it anywhere you'd like, you just need one.
Okay. Does anyone else, Councilman Donovan?
Yeah, to get back to that, who designated the train station? You know, you don't know?
Yes, the DOT runs the train station.
Yes, I know.
Through a,
So that's what-
parking's run through a vendor, Owens runs.
And
Craig, somebody, the TWRA.
you can't smoke right now cigarettes. at the train
Yes, you can, sir.
You can't, I mean,
He's a smoker.
I'm a smoker and I take the train. There's a place at the train station at both sides, whether you're going Grand Central.
designated spot.
Yes, sir.
It's not on the platforms, correct?
Well, it's off the platform by about 5 feet, yeah, but there's a designated spot on both sides of the platform.
And that's where we're looking. I mean, I work for the railroad, I retired from the railroad. I don't see the railroad being very happy about that personally, but,
We're in talks with them. I don't know what they're gonna want, if they're gonna want easement, if they're gonna want us to pay money, I don't know yet. They're currently considering it. If not, I'm happy to, I mean, I'll paint myself, make a 5 by 5 square anywhere you'd like. I mean, we just need one. As long as we have under 250,000, we just need one, as long as we're over 50,000.
Anything else, Councilman Donovan? Does anyone else have any questions? Are we good? Hold on.
When we're talking about designated smoking areas, does that also pertain to like if someone were vaping or taking an edible form of marijuana, or if it's not producing smoke, can that be done?
Vaping is, we'll have to tease that out, whether that's, that currently in many areas is considered not smoking, it's vaping, it's different. Edibles, definitely not.
Yeah.
You could sit next to somebody, they're eating an edible, that's life.
As long as you're not operating a motor vehicle, essentially you can do edibles whenever you'd like. Vaping, it's complicated. There is some case law where it's considered the same as smoking, and there's some where it's not. It's based on what the consequence that's being sued over is, so I can't answer that question.
Would you like to say something, Council?
I am flabbergasted.
Does anyone else have anything? I'd like to thank you for coming before us. Very good presentation. You did an excellent job. We really do appreciate the info that you provided for us tonight. Gary, you, go ahead. Anything else? All right. So with that, time is now 8:55. We're going to close the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Safety.
Thank you, Councilman Bruno, for a very informative discussion. Unfinished business, we do have a couple items under unfinished business. First item is an update on the conference center project.
Unfortunately, the selected developer couldn't be here tonight, but I can report the following. He was waiting for a demand study, meaning he was waiting for a post-COVID study that could give him real figures for businesses as to what demand would be. I don't have a copy of that study. When I have a copy, I will share it with everyone. I will review it with the mayor. What he says, what seems to indicate, the demand study seems to indicate is smaller is better. So it does look like you're not going to have the big Kahuna restaurant is less profitable than 4 boutique-y sort of places. So rather than 3, you might be looking to do 4 restaurants. A wedding facility event space is still very much considered in the study to be something that will monetize the project. There seems to be big demand for that. There seems to be not enough places where people can engage in that. We're also going to, make sure we tease out a little bit more what we envision the Savin Rock Museum to be within this schematic. with the size. You know, we're gonna be coming back. I don't wanna put an exact date on it, but very soon, because this, don't forget, this project is gonna be in the form of a lease or a ground lease type transaction. So the city is gonna retain control, and with that, we're gonna have to come up with actual number. So I will be coming back when we're looking to envision that contract, and the mayor will be recommending a plan that will work there. You know, he's doing other scientific type engineering and other analysis of the site. He has some thoughts of things he might be able to do to increase public areas, increase parking, but we'll wait to do that. The positive thing is, you know, the demand study, which they paid for out of their own pocket, doesn't really change what they presented to you in the past. Instead of 3 restaurants, he envisions 4, so I think that's positive. And we hope to have more to say about that. I will be reporting on this at the August meeting. Unsolicited, we are getting more interest in this site. So if we don't, again, we're going to push to make sure there's the proper amount of movement here, because if not, it does seem pretty clear that we have more options than we did when we put this out. So we have a contract with them. We're not going to violate the contract, but we are going to be very aggressive about getting the needs of West Haven met within the confines of that contract.
Lee, what's the zoning for that particular
So,
property?
yeah, down on the water, you have 2 designated zones. You have the SRR zone. So if you think about where Stowe's is, and you have the 6-story waterfront high-rise condo development, SRR meaning residential. So there's a lot of residential type uses in the SRR. You have the big apartment building. The strip mall that just changed hands, Jimmy's and the conference center, are in an SCR. And that's different and has some different designations. In our plan and development, there are some recommendations. I'm reviewing those with the mayor, and the mayor is going to discuss that with our planning and zoning person, Mr. Soto. And if we can proactively speed any sort of development projects, including with the new developer, the mayor has asked us to do that. So if we have proposals that can come from the city, even absent a developer actually asking for them, but that we think will help speed development, that's our plan. And the mayor you'll probably hear the mayor talk about that at your next meeting.
Any members from the council have any questions? Councilman Bruno.
Lee, thank you very much for coming before us on this. This is like, you know, a very hot topic, as you know, in the city. I get asked about it many, many times a month. And now we see they're taking the buildings down, which means that, in reality, that they won't be paying taxes on the buildings. So
Councilman Bruno, we're on the conference center.
we're on the conference center?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were over at the Haven.
Not yet.
Okay, I apologize. I missed that.
You did it, Peter.
I did it, Peter. I apologize. Sorry, Peter. Go ahead. My bad on that one. I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did not realize that.
Councilman Finelli?
I have 2 questions. The first one is, best case scenario, when do we think this could be up and, you know, built and ready for people to be eating at? And the second question is, and I apologize if this is something that was mentioned at the last time that they were here, but I know the city, they're leasing the property from the city. So let's say 20 years from now, this developer doesn't want to have anything to do with this project anymore. Would the city then own the structure on it by default? Like, how would that work?
Well, you're the council, so you ultimately get to decide. What's going to happen, probably at the August meeting, I don't want to guarantee it, but it looks that way, is that the mayor is going to propose a particular format. It's going to be one of 2 ways. Depending on what they want to do with the existing structure, you know, if you're, it's like anybody else. If you had waterfront property, well, let's say Phipps Lake is a good example. let's say someone independently owned all the Phipps Lake land and you had to lease it. So you had a house on Phipps Lake and you had to lease the land, okay? So if you're gonna make improvements to your house, you wouldn't wanna walk away and then someone else gets the benefit of those improvements. So that's the kind of thing that has to be worked out. Or what happens with, certainly, for instance, with the Surfside, what you're gonna see in the end with Surfside is you're gonna see a ground lease. The only thing that the housing authority will own in the end will be the land. And then the building's gonna be owned through a series of other entities. And that's so they can get different financing and tax credit financing, so on and so forth, for another reason. So you could envision that proposal where it's just a ground lease. We control the ground, they build, you know, whatever building they want, and they have some say, you know, in the building. I mean, you know, you can't expect that we do a deal where somebody invests, you know, I don't know, either hundreds of thousands or $1 million or something into a building and then we just take it back.
So, well, no, I don't mean if we took it back, but if they, so they could sell the building then, and then the new buyer would still be leasing the land from the city.
Yeah, I doubt you would want, again, that would be up to the council, but
I mean, usually,
I wouldn't be recommending a lease arrangement where the council didn't have some say. Even if one were very entrepreneurial and very pro-capitalist on just moral grounds, you might want to have a say, because even if the use isn't immoral, you could have a party that engages in immoral activity that you don't approve of. For example, could they lease to a Chinese company and is everybody going to be, oh, good, the Chinese are buying our, you know, maybe that's good, maybe it isn't good. But you would want to retain that right. You know, so if you had a country that, you know, oh, North Korea is going to, you know, buy our league, well, maybe that's not what you want to do. In addition to that, there are certain entities that people might not feel comfortable with that you're engaging in, or you have an actual city contract that they're benefiting from city land and the ground lease. So I would think you would retain some right as to who they could lease to. But you couldn't make it prohibitive. You wouldn't want to make it prohibitive, but you could make it such that they would lose their equity share.
That's what I was kind of just wondering if the city, I think it's.
Yeah, I can't guarantee, I do think it's likely I will be back here potentially with a proposed lease arrangement.
And just back to my first question, when do you think, like, best case scenario that these businesses would possibly be opening?
Well, under our contract, I mean, they'd have to be well on their way. I mean, I think the idea would be, you know, you're going to want to, I mean, next Memorial Day, you're going to want to be, you're going to want to be taking advantage of that site. So I think the profit motive is going to drive them to try to want to have that done that quickly. And unlike the schools, you know, you don't have the same, I mean, you have some engineering issues, it's on the water, so you're always going to have flooding issues, people can talk about issues relative to climate change, so on and so forth, but you don't have remediation issues. You don't have anything stopping you from going forward. And they've already done preliminary engineering work, and they already have their financing in place. So the lease, I mean, in the email he sent me, I mean, he's really pushing me to have a lease arrangement. So I think it is, can't guarantee it, but I think it is highly likely we'll be back in August with the mayor proposing a particular lease arrangement.
Councilwoman O'Connor.
I think it's more of a request than a question. Could you please push them to get the study to us so we have at least a week to study it before the next council meeting?
Yeah,
I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions on that. And I'm assuming the questions they asked and who they asked them to will be in that study?
But yeah, it's a standard demand study that any business would do that's proposing in an area. I would guess you would see a lot of things in there. Like, for instance, you know, there are certain areas where if you were going to open up a restaurant, you might want to know how many dry cleaners are in the area. Maybe the type of the customer you're looking at is a dry cleaner client. On another end, you could have a different type of restaurant where you're looking at, you know, how many pickup trucks are in the area. I mean, so each demand study tries to analyze and identify different things. This is more of a, you know, people are going to be coming near and far. So it's really looking at similarly situated projects in the general region, and it'll be picking up on that, but I will get it to you as soon as I can.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the Seven Rock Conference Center projects? Seeing no other questions, if you want to jump to the next one, Lee?
Yeah, so,
Update on the Haven project.
I am, it always baffles me why this happens, but the legislative process is such, and not present company excluded, I think. But the legislative process in both the federal side and the state side is, it does seem like you really have to push it to the last possible day to get a lot of things done. I didn't see why we couldn't have a tax district in February, didn't understand why, so on and so forth. It was an enormously heavier lift. I didn't actually expect to be involved in the process, and I was more involved in the process than I wanted to be. So it was a very heavy lift, but it did get done. We do have a tax district, and he knows it, and maybe that's why he's leaving, but Riley is assisting me with what we are going to do is, the mayor was in contact with a representative of the developer who dealt with concerning the whole process. And he's agreed that we're going to send him a proposed interlocal agreement. So with the tax district in place, the first thing you have to do is you have an interlocal agreement that is an agreement between the city and the tax district, and that covers a bunch of different things. You know, it might cover where, for instance, how many fire hydrants there are, and where they're located and who pays for them. How many street lights are going to be, where they're located and who pays for them. If they're going to collect, they're the only entity, so I don't know if they're going to collect taxes from themselves, but if they collect taxes, do they want the city to be involved in any sort of tax collection? Does the city get any of the tax collection? Riley is already gathering the different agreements, both in the state of Connecticut on different specialized tax districts and in other parts of the country. So we're going to have a pretty robust interlocal agreement, which will come back here when both sides come to an agreement about what they think. Again, that'll be the mayor presenting to you what the mayor's recommendation is for entering into a local agreement. The interlocal agreement will then allow them to then pivot, and the different purposes of tax districts. I was on the phone today with a group who in 2015 created sort of a public facilities district. It was really to get infrastructure. The whole purpose of the district was to create a revenue source to get more infrastructure in the actual area. So they're all for different purposes, but the purpose of this district, rest clear, is because selling bonds, tax district bonds, is going to be a much lower interest rate than commercial lending for the same type of project. And so that's the savings that they were hoping to piggyback on, because there is very little hope that the government dollars are going to rain on them for this project any more than they already have. So they would float the revenue bonds, and once those bonds are in place, then they have money to facilitate developing the project. So we're well on our way, and I keep monitoring the status of the Simon Group. The Simon Group remains a stock that your police pension owns, which is always a good sign. That says has the confidence of the investment agent, who many of us in the city have a lot of confidence in. The Simon Group doubled down during COVID in this area. They bought JCPenney, they bought Brooks Brothers, they cut a deal with Amazon for big box space, and they've renegotiated many of their lease arrangements in many of their projects. So whatever you think of this project, the actual group that we're looking to is not only the #1 kahuna in this space, but they're expecting to be in this space a long time, and if anything, drive out any limited competition. So I think that's positive, and it gives me confidence that, they're not going to be coming back with a proposal for self-storage or something. They are really going to do this. And I think, something we can be excited about.
So Lee, the question I have, or the concern that I have is, in our budget assumptions, we've identified a period of time, I believe it's next year's budget, where our tax collection rate takes a little bit of a dip because we're anticipating that the site's going to be completely demolished, which they're well on their way to now. If you go by there, they're actively removing buildings. My concern is on the other end. Right? We've also anticipated when we think we're going to identify some tax revenue from that project. So in the interlocal agreement, one, I would hope that there would be a representative from the developer here as we take that piece of legislation up. And secondly, I'd be interested in no potential timeline, because I think a lag in that project from demolition to construction may impact the budget assumptions that we have in place.
Yeah, so I would anticipate, going back, I would anticipate we should be able to get them a draft proposal that they agreed would be reviewed by their representative groups. I would say within 10 days. I might be pushing them a little bit, but within 10 days. And then I don't think I can make your August meeting for something, but I would be looking into September, hoping something comes back. And they would review it, make changes, we go back and forth. I don't anticipate that it's the kind of agreement that there would be any big fighting on. There's no real exchange of money, but we'll see. It'll be, we have to, there's little features of it. We have to make sure that whatever public need there is, and that's why I emphasize like fire hydrant, that all the public need is put in place and mandated by the interlocal agreement and not paid for by the city of West Haven. I think that's crucial. But if there is, if we are trying to get revenue generated from the tax district, so for example, if they included in the lease arrangements some sort of, there's usually a tax escalator clause in most commercial leases, so I don't know how they're going to arrange that, but there might be a revenue source that we might fight over a little bit. But my target is to be back here at one of your September meetings.
And nothing that has to be answered now, but as a special taxation district, I'd be interested to know, are they billed for the police service or the fire service in that special taxation district? So not that, we don't need to answer that now, but I think as we go forward, I think those are questions that I'll have.
But that's a perfect example. I mean, we would coordinate with, I believe that property is in the Center Fire District, so we would coordinate with Chief O'Brien, and we would coordinate with Chief Perno as to exactly what they thought the best way for their needs to be fulfilled in the project. A police substation is actually in part of the discussion and part of the plans, because the finished product, of course, you got a lot of patrons, you got traffic, you got a lot of issues. So all that will be envisioned. In addition, if you talk with the chief's sergeant in charge of traffic, well, I guess I'll let the cat out of the bag. I mean, we have a lot of antiquated traffic signal issues, and we're going to start replacing them. But I would think that the traffic signal issues down in that area, since they're going to be doing traffic improvements along Elm Street, I would like to think we can capture all of that in this in our local agreement. So things like that are going to be envisioned. We'll hope we get every piece that we can, trash removal, all that kind of stuff.
Any questions related from the council? Okay, you're up there. Thank you. Okay, moving right along, the council will now convene as a whole for our committee reports. First committee to report out is the Finance Committee, Councilwoman Hosky.
To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter of the designation of the city auditors, reports that the committee met on the 26th day of July 2020 to consider said matter. 2021, what did I say? 2021, to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolve, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby confirms the city auditors to be Clifton Larson LLP, and that we ask them to ensure that part of the audit includes the COVID-19 funding and ARP to be audited.
Councilwoman Hosky's brought forward Communication E from Finance Director Frank Chaplinsky in regards to the designation of the city auditors. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilman Galignano and Cohen. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously.
To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter of a donation for the Where Angels Play Playground. Reports that the committee met on the 26th day of July 2021 to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby accepts the donation of $2,500 from the West Haven Elks Lodge number 1537 to be used by the Park and Recreation Department for the placement of a handicap ramp at Where Angels Play Playground.
Councilwoman Hosky's brought forward Communication F from Finance Department in regards to a donation for the Where Angels Play Playground. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilman Massaro. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? And that motion passes unanimously.
To the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Finance, to whom was referred the matter of a transfer of funds for the sewer outfall pipe project, reports that the committee met on the 26th day of July 2021 to consider said matter. It is the unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the City Council hereby authorizes the following interdepartment transfer, line item 30140000550000170008. The WPC incinerator decreases by $236,119. Line item 30140000550000 outfall pipe increased by $236,119.
Councilwoman Hosky brought forward Communication H from City Engineer Abdul Qadir in regards to the transfer of funds for the sewer outfall pipe project. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilman Bruno. Councilwoman O'Connor, is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Any abstentions? And that motion passes unanimously.
And that is all that we have, Chairman.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hosky. Next up is the Public Lands Committee, Councilman Donovan.
Thank you, Chairman. Tonight before us, we have Communication G, which we are going to hold for a public hearing.
That public hearing will be August 23rd at 6:55 p.m.
Also before us, we have Communication J to the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Public Lands, to whom was referred the matter of the sale of Thompson School. Reports that the committee met on the 26th day of July 2021 to consider said matter. It's a unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, West Haven City Council, having previously awarded the Thompson School property located at 165 Richard Street, hereby authorizes Mayor Nancy R. Rossi to renegotiate the proposed sale with the previous awardee as well as new potential developers.
Councilman Donovan brought forward Communication J from Corporation Counsel in regards to Thompson School. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Galignano. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Are there any abstentions? And that motion passes unanimously.
Next, we have Communication I from 6/14/21 to the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Public Lands, to whom was referred to the matter of, and there's a typo, it is 70 Hall Street, not 75. Reports that the committee met on the 26th day of July 2021 to consider said matter. It is unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the City Council of the City of West Haven hereby approves the sale of approximately 6,300 square feet of 70 Hall Street to Anderson Glass for $25,000. Corporate Council is authorized to finalize the negotiations and official map.
Councilman Donovan has brought forward communication I from the June 14th, 21 agenda from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to 70 Hall Street option. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilman Conlon and Councilwoman Hamilton. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Any abstentions? And that motion passes unanimously.
And that's all I have for public lands.
Thank you, Councilman Donovan. Next committee is the Personnel and Civil Service Committee. Councilman Massaro.
Start. Communication A, to the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Personnel and Civil Service, to whom the referred matter of the appointment of John M. Carano to the West Haven Police Commission. Reported and committee met on the 26th of July 2021 to be considered said matter. It was unanimous opinion on the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the appointment of John M. Carano of 7 Bailey Drive, West Haven, to the Board of Police Commissioners to replace Keith Sweeney, effective immediately and to expire January 31st, 2026, to be approved.
Councilman Massaro has brought forward communication A from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to the appointment of John M. Carano to the West Haven Police Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilman Cohen, Bruno, Donovan, many others. Is there any discussion?
Discussion.
Councilwoman Oski.
Thank you, Chairman. So I had the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Carano this afternoon. He clearly was expecting my call. And I just wanted to say to him and to Mayor Rossi that I think we absolutely got it right with this choice. I think he is going to be an amazing police commissioner. I think his thoroughness and his ability to get work done was proven when we selected him to be a part of the Charter Revision Committee. He's just exceptional in my eyes, and I think that hats off to Mayor Rossi for finally getting the Police Commission committee back to being a civilian board and being with civilians, and I appreciate that, and I can't wait to see the great work that they're going to do.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hosky. Councilman Donovan.
Yes, I've known John Carano for many, many years. John literally, seems like it's 185 years we've known each other, going back to Little League and everything. John has been an upstanding person. He's honest. He's does the right thing. So I think any decision he makes is true to his heart, and he knows what's right, and he will do the right thing. And I applaud the mayor for having John.
Thank you, Councilman Donovan. Councilman Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John is in my district. John knows that I have a crush on his mother. No, he's such a highly qualified guy. I mean, he's always ready to serve. He's always ready to serve West Haven. He never says no. He's a great family man. He's an exceptional community servant. And John, thank you so much for all you've done. And I know what you're going to do is just going to be that much more spectacular. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Cohen. Is there any other discussion? Councilwoman Hamilton.
I too think it's a great selection to have John, and I witnessed him on the revision, and I saw how thorough you worked through and how you did all the PowerPoints, and you're right on point. So I too thank you, Mayor, for making the selection. It's a very good one.
Any other discussion? Mayor Rossi.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I am proud to bring him forth as police commissioner. I thank you for all the support. I too have known John Carano for many, many years. And he was on the Board of Education for 4 years. And 2 of those 4 years, he was the chairman of the Board of Education. And one thing I admire about John, everything everyone said is true about him, he's fair. He treats everybody fairly. And that, to me, is a big deal. And he was instrumental with the other board members in bringing a superintendent in, first female, and first female superintendent of color. And that, to me, again, was a big deal. I was very excited. She was wonderful, lovely, lovely woman, intelligent, breath of fresh air. That along with also with the idea of the way that he looked after the students. And what I mean by that is he was fair to them. If someone deserved to walk across that stage, he made sure it happened, and he didn't let anyone stand in his way. Because for those of you who don't know, the Board of Ed chair is the most powerful position there, and they can override pretty much anyone. And so he was very, very fair, and to me, that's what you're supposed to do. And I know he will take those same qualifications to the Board of Police Commissioners. So I do agree that he will definitely do a wonderful job for the city and be fair to anyone who comes before him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Rossi. Any other discussion? Well, so the only thing I want to add is I've known John and his family for a long time, and the one word that comes to mind when I think of John Carano is collaboration. So he being on the Board of Ed as the chairman, bringing Democrats and Republicans together to do what's best for the children at that time, he did that. For charter revision, you know, we had a split, by intent, we had a split board of Democrats and Republicans for the Charter Revision Commission, and they all worked seamlessly together and brought forward their findings to us, not as Democrats or not as Republicans, but as citizens for the city. So John doesn't look at designation, he doesn't look at color, he looks at what's best for the community. So I expect the same in this role as well. So I want to congratulate him on his appointment. That being said, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? And that motion passes unanimously.
Communication B, to the Honorable Council of the City of West Haven. Your Committee on Personnel and Civil Service, to whom was the referred matter of reappointing Paul Butler to the West Haven Police Commission. Reported that the committee met on the 26th of July of 2021 to consider said matter. It was unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the reappointment of Paul Butler of 88 Alexander Drive, West Haven, to the Board of Police Commissioners, effective immediately and to expire January 31st, 2025, to be approved.
Councilman Massaro's brought forward communication B for Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to the reappointment of Paul E. Butler Jr. to the West Haven Police Commission. Is there a second? Second. Second, Councilman Gagliano, Cohen, and Bruno. Is there any discussion? Councilman Cohen.
Yeah, you know, I know that Paul's not here this evening. At least I don't see him here this evening. And, you know, he's one of those guys, and his family and his sons, just a legacy of service to our community. Police service, community service, sports. I mean, the family, and Paul especially, has really been top shelf to West Haven. And on top of that, he has some incredible credentials. So, Paul, if you're out there listening, thank you for serving.
Thank you, Councilman Cohen. Is there any other discussion? Councilwoman Oski?
So I spoke to Paul too. It was a great conversation. It was interesting because I asked them all, like, why do you want to continue to serve? And I'll let the answers stand between us. But, we go back a long time ago. He was with Pop Warner, but he does have a long history of community service. And in the discussion and just talking with him about, where we want to see and the police go and be, the community engagement and, what we could do to have our police department be, the best and what other departments want to be like. And I just think that He's done a really great job, same as, John, you think of the word collaboration, he works with everybody, he works with the men know him, the women know him, and the community knows him. So I think that it made sense to reappoint him. I think, we did discuss when he might be retiring, but I'm just glad that he's up for renewal and that we get a chance, I get the opportunity to vote yes for him.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hosky. Is there any other discussion? Go, Mayor.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've gone to several police commission meetings, and for actually quite a few years. And Commissioner Butler has always been engaging. His attendance is good. He knows, he pays attention. He knows what's on the agenda. And again, I do agree. He's very involved in community service here. And I think he will continue the job that he's been doing. And again, I have the utmost respect for him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? And the motion passes unanimously.
Communication C to the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Personnel and Civil Service, to whom was referred the matter of appointing Sammy Rivera to the Redevelopment Agency. Reported that the committee met on the 26th day of July 2021 to consider said matter. It was unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the appointment of Sammy Rivera, 14 Hamilton Street, West Haven, to the Redevelopment Agency to replace Bruce Sweeney, effective immediately and to expire September 30th, 2023, to be approved.
Councilman Massaro brought forward communication C from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to the appointment of Sammy Rivera to the Redevelopment Agency. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilwoman Hosky. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Hamilton?
Well, I'm always happy to see somebody in my district get appointed to different boards and commissions. So I'm sure Sammy will do a great job. He runs a great business, and I'm sure he'll bring some of those expertise to your board, Mayor. So congratulations to him and when he passes.
Is there any other discussion? Mayor?
Thank you again. Yes, Sammy Rivera, I put him on CBA as an alternate, and he's taken that position very seriously. His attendance is good, and he engages and participates. I think he will do well as this is a full-fledged member on the Redevelopment Agency. He's very interested in moving West Haven forward and doing the right thing. He owns a business here, he has roots here, he lives here, and he's very active and very much a big part of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? And the motion passes unanimously.
Communication D to the Honorable City Council of the City of West Haven, your Committee on Personnel and Civil Service, to whom it was referred the matter to reappoint Troy Tappan to the Allentown Fire Commission. Reported on the committee met on the 26th day of July 2021 to consider the said matter. It was unanimous opinion of the committee that the following motion be presented. Resolved, the reappointment of Troy Tappan of 64 Josephine Avenue, West Haven, to the West Haven Allentown Fire Commission to be effective immediately and to expire June 30th, 2026, to be approved.
Councilman Massaro has brought forward communication D from Mayor Nancy R. Rossi in regards to the reappointment of Troy T. Tappan to the Allentown Fire Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilwoman McGee. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Hamilton.
I've known Troy for a long time. He was friends with my brother, and he's always been good people. I thought he was a great pick to finish out the commission, and I'm glad to see that I have two loves here, Troy and the Allentown Fire Department and the commission. So I'm sure that Troy will continue to do a great job. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hamilton, is there any other discussion? Councilman Massaro.
Like I said, I've been to a couple meetings when Troy was there. at the Allentown Fire Department, and he was very, very helpful. And I spoke to Chairman Diaz, and since he's a very, very big plus to the department. He does pitch in when he has to, and he's a very, very nice gentleman. Thank you, Mayor, for reappointing.
Thank you, Councilman Massaro. Any other discussion? Mayor?
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Tappan has been a very good pick, I do agree. He was only on, I want to say, just a few months when the interviews came up for the fire chief. And I sat in on those interviews. The chairwoman had asked me to sit in. I didn't participate, but I did sit in. He asked very good questions, very good follow-ups, and was very engaging with all of the participants, and they worked very hard to make the right decision for Allentown. And so, again, I think it's only fair that he should get another 5 years, because he only got a small part, because he got a partial, I think it was only a year if it was that. So I'm sure he's got a lot of good things that are going to happen. I agree, he's a very nice gentleman, he's very polite, and again, really engages with people, and I do appreciate that, because interviewing like that, he asked all the right questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Any abstentions? And that motion passes unanimously.
That's it for personnel and civil service.
Thank you, Councilman Massaro.
That's all I got to say.
Adoption of ordinances previously presented, there are none. Are there any council liaison reports for this evening? Do not see any hands. Is there any new business for this evening? Councilwoman Hamilton.
I just want to thank Councilwoman McGee, because I remember her getting a call saying that these plaques were homeless, and she made the initial call to Beth, and Beth got on it, and now we see the end results. So thank you, Councilwoman McGee.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hamilton. Is there any other new business? Councilman Cohen?
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Vertical Church. They had a serve day a couple of weeks ago, and they really went into our communities, into like about 4 or 5 districts, if I recall. And I know in my district that the folks at Morrissey Manor, even, I got a call a couple of days ago about how thrilled they were with we did like a couple of big flower beds, and they did a food box drive. And you know, it's just so nice that, you know, you get people just calling you saying, this is just incredible, thoughtful. I let Pastor Paul know that, but I did want to let everybody to know the good works that are going on in the city by a wonderful organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Cohen. Is there any other new business? Yes, Councilwoman Hamilton.
I just want to thank the council and let the public know that we'll all be working on a time capsule for the centennial. So you'll hear the progress as it goes, but I think it'll be fun and exciting. And thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hamilton. Any other new business? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.